When is a Jagen not a Jagen? Well, when they're not in a Fire Emblem game and their name is Josef. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, my coverage of Unicorn Overlord, strategy RPGs, other types of video games, and just the ecosystem in general, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Topic of the day today, Josef. Paladin extraordinaire, former commander of the Cornian Knights, and all-around absolute monster. If you've played Unicorn Overlord, you probably know Josef is a unit that can demolish literally anything and everything until at least 4 hours into the demo, where he starts to get maybe a little bit of challenge thrown his way, but is still generally considered to be absolutely monstrously overpowered. This man is so strong that the common consensus across everyone I've talked to about it is that at some point after this point where the story ends in the demo, there has to be a moment where Josef gets killed off for good because he's just so strong. That said, I do believe he will stop scaling so well as we get later into the game due to issues with stats and the like, but we don't know that for certain until the game comes out. Now, the point of today's video is to address some concerns that I've seen people have about actually using Josef. Not necessarily because it destroys game balance or anything like that. He's as powerful as he is for a reason. The game gives you such a tool because there's going to be times where you need it, especially if you're playing on Expert, but more the classic Fire Emblem concern of using the really strong old man knight that the game gives you at the start of the game is setting you up for a level of failure in the future by denying your other units that will grow into more powerful units by the late game the experience and battle that they need to grow into those more powerful versions. If Josef is slaying everything left, right, and center and taking all the XP for himself, how is your army supposed to grow, right? That's kind of the idea, and that's the general concept of what a Jagen entails in Fire Emblem. However, if you're coming into Unicorn Overlord with a mindset rooted in the way Fire Emblem handles your early game pre-promote powerhouse, then I regret to inform you that you're doing it wrong. And it's completely understandable why. This is a very common Fire Emblem trope. It's something that I've not seen in too many other games of this type as we go back and look through various different strategy RPGs. It's very Fire Emblem. So I don't blame you, but we got to fix that mindset. We're also going to be talking about why Josef is so good and why I do recommend that you utilize him beyond just the benefits that we're about to say, but just because his kit is really strong. Templar is a really good class, and having access to one as early as you do is a huge boon for you. First off, why is him sucking up XP not an issue? Then we'll talk about the unit himself. The idea behind you should bench Josef so that he doesn't absorb XP that your other units need is rooted in the idea that in Fire Emblem, battles are one-on-one, right? You send in a unit, they fight an enemy unit, maybe you get a kill, they get some XP. Cool. If you send in a Jagen to do that, because they're so over-leveled and so powerful, they're liable to just completely annihilate an enemy unit, making it so that no other of your allies can gain any XP from fighting them, and also, because their level is so much higher, they'll get basically no experience out of it as well. This becomes even more of a problem when you consider that a lot of Jagen units have really poor growth rates, so any experience that they do get, even if they eventually do eke out a level, really won't benefit them at all. You know, some classic examples, like the original Jagen himself in Marth's games, is hysterically bad. Like, literally will not get any stronger, except for like an occasional point in HP every once in a while, and that's basically it. Maybe by the end of the game, if you power him all the way up, he'll have gained a couple stats, but like nothing reasonable or workable at all. So you're supposed to avoid using these units for anything other than setting up kills for your weaker units as sort of a mentor, and then eventually cut them from your army and bring in someone else who can fill that slot and also has the capability to get stronger over the course of the game. That's what people are advocating for here, and the thing that makes that incorrect is the squad-based system in Unicorn Overlord. In units, every member of the squad gets a share of the experience, the same share of the experience, whether they did supporting actions, offensive actions, you name it. It doesn't matter if they're a level 1, doesn't matter if they're level 20, everyone will get XP. The only thing that impacts how much XP is gained is the actual level of the units themselves. A low-level unit will gain more, and a high-level unit will gain less, up to the point where if you exceed an opponent's level by 3, maybe 4, I'm not exactly sure on that, but it's one or the other, then you will actually gain just as little XP as Josef himself, despite him being a level 20 god. Because of this XP limit and the way it's spread around, you are actually incentivized to bring Josef along in a squad, preferably with some lower level units, to help get them some experience and get them caught up to the rest of your army. You have more than enough deployment slots between actual units and spaces in those units, especially as you upgrade them, to field a large army of recruits that will be able to gain a lot of experience as you go. Having one slot in one unit go to Josef, who isn't going to be getting a lot of XP, is not going to hurt you, especially when there's so many ways to get more XP in the game through things like treatises and grinding stages. You don't need to worry about a limited amount of experience here like you do in a linear Fire Emblem game with a set number of stages. You just don't have to worry about it. It's not a concern. As such, all you have are upsides. Josef is tanky, he's strong, he does a lot of damage, and all of his skills are focused around either annihilating enemies or keeping himself and his allies alive. This means that even low-level basic starter recruit generics that you pick up because you wanted to add another soldier or a Griffin Knight or whatever to your squad are really well matched with him, as he can make sure that they stay alive, beat a bunch of enemy units, drop squads, and get a bunch of XP. You can throw them out into the front line, and so long as there's not something untoward that's happening, like a Griffin Knight getting sniped by an archer, they should survive plenty of combat, be able to get into combat very quickly because of Josef being a mounted cavalry unit, and get a lot of XP to get caught up to your army without even needing to utilize any single-use treaties or spend your time in grinding stages. In the early game especially, and especially on expert mode, this is a huge boon. To say nothing of the fact that Josef is the force that's going to allow you to punch through some truly scary squads. He's the only anti-magic unit that you have early in the game, with a leadership skill that reduces the damage you'll be taking from magical assist attacks, which can shred most squads in the early game, especially when you first encounter wizards. So having him able to run up, punch through, kill a bunch of mages, get out the other side, and more likely than not have his entire squad still be alive and stronger for it in the process is huge, and it's the #1 reason why Josef is one of the best units in the early game. Not just on a pure statistical basis, but because of the utility that he brings to your team. Now, with the justifications and explanations for my argument out of the way, let's talk about why Josef is actually such a strong unit mechanically, what he brings to the table, and why it makes him so viable for so very long, especially compared to some other Jagens in Fire Emblem's history. And yes, I know, it's a little bit of an unfair comparison because there's so much more that any given character can do in Unicorn Overlord, especially compared to older Fire Emblem games, but still. Like, if you compare Josef to the rest of the Jagen roster, I think he would still kick a ton of ass. Let's talk about it. First off, his stats. Josef is set up to be a defensive tank. His 2 growth types are Hardy and Guardian, making sure that he's able to take a lot of hits and protect his allies while he does it. And while his physical attack is no joke, his actual strongest offensive stat is his magical attack. This means that if you really wanted him to become an absolute destroyer, you would want to give him a weapon that gives him magical attack, or have a unit like a witch to give him magical attack, so that he can really make the most of that stat. His growths are fairly balanced across the board, with a very noticeable S-rank growth in magic defense, meaning that he will always be quite resilient against mages, again, helping to protect your weaker squad mates from big magical attacks. Moving over to Josef's skills, he does have the very standard array of Templar skills. He doesn't have anything special here compared to the rest of them. However, Templar has a really good skill set. His basic attack, Slice, is just a solid damaging attack, 100 physical potency, attacks a single enemy, but notably grants the user +1 PP if the target is defeated, which is awesome because Josef has a lot of really good passive skills that we're going to talk about in a second. He also very notably has an active skill Heal, but long before you get access to any clerics or anything like that, so he's actually going to be one of your best healers as well. Even if you just wanted to slap him in the back row and let him use passive skills to support allies and heal them, that's still a really good use if for whatever reason you didn't feel like having him run out and slap stuff. But again, like, it doesn't hurt to have him run out and slap stuff. So his heal is very nice, restores a moderate HP to an ally, 100 magical potency. It's good stuff. Eventually, once he hits level 30, he'll get the Divine Cross skill, attacks a single enemy and removes all buffs from said enemy, grants the user +1 PP if the target is defeated. But what's noticeable about this, it sounds like, oh, well, it's just Slice, but it costs 2 active points and removes their buffs. Whoop-de-doo. Look at the effects, though. 50 physical potency and 50 magical potency. So anything that doesn't have good magic resist is going to be getting hit harder than Slice right off the bat. It hits twice, so you're actually dealing across physical and magical a cumulative 200 potency, and again, if they have bad magical resist, as many units do, that's even more damage. And its hit rate, true. You will never miss with this attack. Obviously, getting to level 30 means we are well out of the early game territory, and as such, you might not be fielding Josef anymore. It's hard to say until we actually get our hands on the full game, but this is a massive attack, and it should give you an idea of just how capable Templars are going to be, even if Josef is not the Templar that you happen to be using at that point. Moving on from our attacks, though, the really important thing is our passive skills, starting with Holy Barrier. This costs 1 PP. It is a support action. It activates before an ally is attacked, and it reduces the damage taken by an ally for 50% for 1 attack, as well as preventing them from being afflicted. This is essentially a Hoplite's Guard, without necessarily taking the hit for the ally that's being targeted, but with the added benefit of preventing them from being afflicted with any sort of debuffs. PP being stolen? Nah. Poison? Nope. Freeze? Don't worry about it. This is an excellent, excellent skill, and because it activates when you are attacked, not on Josef's initiative, you can be 100% certain that Josef will always protect at least one member of your squad one time, and it's great. Moving on, we have Holy Guard, activates before being hit by a physical attack, block an enemy attack with a medium guard, and prevents debuffs. So essentially, Holy Guard is Josef's personal version of Holy Barrier. Protects allies with the barrier, protects himself with the guard. Makes him very tanky, makes him a very good choice to have at the front of a squad to make him the target over your squishier backline units who are trying to get XP. Again, makes him really good for his designated role of raising the lobies. Finally, he has the passive skill Pursuit. Activates after an ally attacks, active, follow-up attack a single enemy. This is great. Really cannot go wrong with this. It's just going to help you clean up squads faster, and on expert mode especially, where enemies have a lot more stats and where you really want to be clearing them as fast as possible to preserve your relatively low stamina and maximize the amount of time that you finish a stage with to get extra bonuses. This is huge. If you're going in with a squad and you want to attack something, Pursuit is the way you want to go to try and finish things off and keep on moving. It's a great skill. Happy to have it here on Josef, and it really cements him as a very good protector and supporter for any low-level squad. Finally, if you happen to have him as the leader of a given squad, which is a good idea, seeing as how he's cavalry and he'll be able to move your lobies around faster as a result, he does have the Heal Valor skill, where for 1 point, you can restore 50% of HP to an allied unit. Again, like, he can be not even in the squad that you're supporting and still support them, still keep them healed up, still keep them on the front. He's great, and he doesn't even have to be in battle to do it. I really cannot emphasize enough how strong of a class Templar is, and how happy I am that we have a sort of defensive, supportive healer Jagen for the first time ever, specifically because of the fact that Unicorn Overlord has such a unique setup in terms of how it executes on its skills compared to something like Fire Emblem. I truly cannot emphasize enough, use Josef. If he doesn't get killed off in the story, there's really going to be little reason to not use Josef until you get all of your other units leveled to his point, and we can see how his stats wind up comparing to them. It's very possible that he will get completely out-leveled by your lower-level units by the mid-game, as a Jagen should. But this early in the game where you don't have to worry about XP being hoovered up by him like you do in Fire Emblem, there's no reason not to use him. He's phenomenal. Slap him in your squads. I expect not to see any more discourse about, well, but you should drop him because he takes all of your XP. He's going to make your units weaker. No, he's not. In fact, he's only going to ensure that you have a wider range of units to your name that are high level and ready to go, which in a game like this, where we're going to keep building out our squads, keep increasing the number of units that we can have in them, you're going to need as many leveled guys as you can get, and if Josef can help you make that happen faster, bully. Good for you. I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope it puts some of these discussions to rest. There's been a lot of back and forth on whether you should use Josef or not, and I mean, even if you just take his gear and slap him into a squad with nothing but a recruit's sword and a bronze buckler, he's still going to rock. He's still going to do everything that you need him to do all the way through where the demo ends. What happens beyond that, hard to say, but I think we can safely say now that we know how and why Josef should be used, and that he is, in fact, an incredibly powerful unit. With that said, though, if you have any further conversation about this, any questions, discussion, anything like that, drop it in the comments down below. Do you have a specific way that you like to use Josef compared to what you've seen me do or others do? Let us know. Make it easier for people to use this really powerful unit. Sounds good to me. Gonna wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night, Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.